You've all heard of comfort food, the kind of food you like to eat regardless of its nutritional value, but it just makes you feel good. Did you know movies operate the same way? That's right, we're going to talk about the movies that we like regardless of critical praise, box office totals, and overall audience reception. These are the movies we love for being what they are, why they are, and how they are. These are our comfort flicks.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Oh. Did you want to?
Sorry. I'll let you.
Next time. Okay.
Someone is creating a device that amplifies paranormal activity.
Just to start off, we're not going to get into the little controversy with this film. This is Comfort Flicks. We're going to talk about why we enjoy things that are not stellar quality, but we still enjoy them. So if you came here to see that whole thing, go look at something else, because I'm sure there's a million videos from over the last 4 years to tell you all about that stupid thing. Yeah. So we're just going to talk about the movie that we have fun with.
And so that is why we're going to talk about the Ghostbusters 2016 movie directed by Paul Feig, starring pretty much a veritable who's who of comedic talent, who a lot of them came out, I think they all came out of Saturday Night Live, didn't they?
When I say Rocky starred, I mean it in the sense of Rocky the movie, because I came out here to punch you.
No, they're all from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
Like, but then again, so were some of the original Ghostbusters.
That's true.
So
there you go. That's one thing that followed the tradition.
So clearly, you're a fan of Ghostbusters, so what kind of fan are you of? Oh,
Ghostbusters was my awakening. Most people always say that they can only remember so far back in their life, like the earliest memory they've got. My earliest memory was seeing Ghostbusters in the theater back when it first came out. It pretty much was my inspiration. It practically set the seed in my little adolescent brain and grew to become me. So
it's an important part.
It's kind of important to me.
Okay.
Ghostbusters is very important to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I did take this movie very seriously when it came out. Like any good critic should do, I went to go see this one as objectively as humanly possible, and I knew that this was going to be its own thing, so I judged it as it was its own thing.
I am a fan, but I am not that kind of fan. I watched it as a kid. I never wanted to be a Ghostbuster. I kind of wanted to be Gozer. Like, I thought that would be cooler. The second one scared me as a kid. I was like 8 at the time, but come on. Have you seen that movie?
Gave me a good excuse never to take a bath again.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I watched the cartoon. I had the cartoon toys. So I like it. I was never deeply connected to it. Like, that Star Wars was my jam. I was connected to that. Ghostbusters was, that's cool. I like, it's all right. So when they were going to make this one, I was more on the, okay.
Let's see how it goes. Because
if it were horrible and terrible and just abysmal, my life would not have changed. If it was epic and perfection achieved in the stratosphere, my life would not have changed.
Yeah.
So I was really on the neutral of, I'll go see it, see what this is.
On my side, if it had been terrible, I would have said, okay, that was an exercise, didn't work, let's move on. But when I walked out of the theater, I was like, there's actually a lot of merit to what I saw in this movie. Yes, there are shortcomings, but fortunately, with thorough reflection as the time has gone on, and with repeat viewings, as we just did prior to recording this, the good was very gradually outweighing the bad for me, and the bad was kind of just diminishing in retrospect. If you saw my trailer reaction for the recent film, I already went over what that was.
I saw it in the theater kind of by myself, because you saw, I was working or something, so you saw it. I saw it on my own, and I came out going, okay, that was a lot better than I expected. I had low expectations because everyone was saying it was horrible. Second time I saw it was in a little makeshift movie theater at my car dealership. I was waiting for my car to get fixed, so it just happened to be on, so I was watching it. And the people around me were so excited, and they were having so much fun. I mean, they'd clearly never seen it, but they were this real excitement. And then we rewatched it, and granted, it was the extended cut now, and I was just like, it was fun here. I wasn't being like my life wasn't changing, but it was a good time.
And there's even some stuff which, when I watch it, was going, man, this is the kind of stuff I would remember from the original Ghostbusters that I thought was just as scary and just as freaky. I mean, of course, the standout scene for me was when Patty gets possessed, or no, when Abby gets possessed.
Oh yeah, that seemed
and
so cool.
Slime was coming out of her every orifice.
It was coming out of her nose and her ears, and she was freaking out. And I forgot the villain's name.
Rowan.
Yeah. He was talking to her like
in her head.
It was like in her head. He was talking to her and like affecting her, and she's freaking out. And it was actually an intense. Scary. She was playing it straight too. It was not funny. This was scary.
On a special effects level, I was just blown.
And it was practical.
I was still, it looked practical, and I was going, how did they pull this effect off?
It was really good. It solidified how evil he was and how giving him power was a dangerous thing.
It really did feel like a story that you'd run into in the animated series.
Oh yeah.
It was nice for a change that the main villain was actually human. Just a regular guy.
It was not a demigod. It was not someone who's already dead coming back to life, which is refreshingly different. And I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Is it as memorable as
Vigo or Gozer?
Gozer? No,
Probably
really.
not.
But I give them credit for doing something a little different, and I kind of liked the idea that they were going with a Bizarro-esque Ghostbuster. I say like an evil Ghostbuster.
It falls into the classic villain trope. The one we see a lot in like the Marvel movies. The idea of a villain who is kind of like a darker shade of one of our hero characters. Specifically, Kristen Wiig's character Aaron. The idea of someone who is so ousted but had no one to click with, and has pretty much spent his entire life alienated. The only companions he's got are the dead.
He wasn't a jerk to anyone. Like, he was a jerk. He was a villain. But when he would talk to people, he was polite. He was calm, never... He'd just say something like, but they walk away, oh, I'll take over the world, or whatever. You know, that kind of talk to yourself villainy.
Yeah.
But he was actually really nice to people. And people just were dicks to him.
Yeah, they just...
Like, outright insulting him for no reason. He was so creepy calm that you almost got unsettled.
It's one thing that even the original movie did not do. They have this revolutionary equipment designed, which even Harold Ramis said would probably cost somewhere in the tens of billions to produce. And in the original movie, we just happened to have it. They build the equipment off screen.
And they never test it.
Whereas in this one, we actually get to see a gradual evolution of the equipment. In the subway, they have to cart along on a wagon. And then they actually say, based on the data of that incident, I've been making upgrades gradually.
Even like small upgrades between their like most successful at the stage show. Holtzman's like, hey, I can add this and I can do this and whatever. It's like they're testing them.
Yeah.
Which is like, yes, maybe you should do that. And even then they're kind of making jokes of, is it safe to test this right now? You know.
Even some of the new equipment that they throw into the mix, because even in Ghostbusters 2 they gave us new equipment. So
and who didn't love the slime?
Yeah, the slime blower was awesome. So I was open.
Liked it.
I love the idea that they introduced brand new equipment. I love the ghost grinder.
Tipping time now, Ghost! And this is what you get for sitting on me!
Honestly, because they came out with this new equipment, it made the final climax so much more fun to watch.
Other critics have made this positive point, is that in the original they stand and they
Just stand and
which
play
makes
a stick.
sense. It's very realistic. This kind of makes it more of an action sequence with different kinds of weapons. They're one-handed, two-handed, the shotgun, the grinder, and actually makes it more of a battle.
It made for a much more visually dynamic sequence. And also, because you know that they've been making these upgrades, we know that even the common things, such as the proton stream, which is normally a capture stream, you can believe that they upgrade to a point where it can actually destabilize ghosts.
Yeah, wouldn't you learn?
Yeah, which is a logical step when you want to make sure that, sometimes
and
you
all
just...
ghosts need to be captured. I mean, there's always the notorious ghosts that are just more spectral entities and not actually a person who died.
Yeah.
Like, supposedly Slimer is actually one of those.
And because this movie actually took the time to show that they're actually gradually evolving the equipment, it just made for a
and it
more
looked
spectacular...
visually kind of fun. Like,
Ooh, the visuals.
The visuals... Actually, one of the cool things, and we noticed it when the first ghost actually shows up and surprises you. The aspect ratio changed, and anything that had to do with the ghosts, slime, the proton streams, would go outside the aspect ratio. It was really cool.
You always saw it kind of leap outside
like it would go outside the box. It was really
This
cool.
must have looked awesome in 3D.
Like that, yeah. That
If I don't know,
real,
I
don't know. Was it in 3D?
I don't know, but if it wasn't, it's a damn shame because that would have looked really cool.
But it was just like a fun little thing. You know?
Yeah, it's a fun little thing to kind of give a nice little jump out to the audience.
Something we noticed when we were watching the gag reel how they did the ghost whenever they were like a humanoid.
Yeah.
They had an actor and they had like the LED lights on them so that they could get the correct color scheme.
And to make sure that the lights were emanating off the actors.
And that was actually really neat.
Actually, one could even say probably a trailblazer that probably pioneered this concept was Watchmen with Dr. Manhattan, because that's what they had to do.
Mm-hmm.
They had to put him in a full LED
because he
suit
glows.
because he glows.
Yeah.
And
they did that and that was actually really cool. And I like that the ghost, they totally made me think of the cartoon.
Yeah.
Like the aesthetic. You know, I mean, the ghosts were always kind of goofy looking to begin with in the original movies.
Yeah.
The other films. But I would say they really went with more of the cartoony look from the cartoon. So, which also, I pointed out, like, the beginning of the movie, how colorful it was.
Yeah, actually the color palette in this entire movie, the production design is on point.
Yeah.
This is actually a very colorful film, and it's much more vibrant, and I think that's to the movie's benefit, because when you see the ghosts come out, and I love the color palettes, actually, it's very meticulously placed, so it makes everything much more vibrant, and kind of makes it more exciting, and kind of makes it a heightened reality, kind of different from the prior films.
Yeah, the prior films I felt were grounded in more reality. This one felt like a heightened reality. Like, the people acted a little more heightened, a little bit more cartoonish, but not... This is not Batman Robin here.
Yeah.
We're not going that far. I don't even think we'd say Batman Forever. We're still toned down from that. But kind of sliding up there because, I mean, if you watch the cartoon, it was very...
Yeah.
I mean, one character who is probably the epitome, and I came up with some concept about, was Kevin.
Oh, dear.
Now... Kevin.
Kevin.
The first time I watched it, I really couldn't stand him. I thought he was so stupid.
Yeah.
You're hammering in this idiot joke a little too hard. He's not malicious. He's not a jerk. He's actually not hurting them in any way. He's not causing any problems for them, aside from just not answering the phone well. But aside from that, he has not damaged anything. He didn't insult anybody. He actually amuses them, if anything. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He's not maliciously stupid or stupid to the point of problematic for the characters.
Again, Arthur cabin pressure. It's kind of like in that same pantheon.
Like that. You're just so dumb. But then I noticed, because of course he is the secretary, so you get the comparisons to Janine, who is an intelligent character. At least in the first movie. I'm sorry, I will say they kind of pulled her IQ down a little bit in the second one.
Well, how else is she going to have the will to hook up with Lewis? Yeah.
I'm not going there.
Yeah, we're not going there.
But I kind of noted that he is as dense as Lewis. Lewis is an intelligent accountant. We know he knows numbers. But otherwise, are you going to call Lewis from the original films smart? I mean...
he was dumb enough to think that he's the one who killed the shell over the art museum.
That's what told me that maybe he's also an homage to Lewis, because after all is said and done, he makes a comment of, I pushed some buttons and the whole building went back together. And it reminded me of Lewis shooting the shell on the outside of the museum. It vantages and he thinks he did it, which he of course didn't. And it's like, you poor soul child, and the same thing. And I was like, well, he's kind of like, if you take Janine as a secretary, is about the only similarity to her, and Lewis is like naive, stupid innocence, and then you just throw in a little Chris Hemsworth DNA, and crush it together. That's Kevin.
And that's something you got to think about from the actor's standpoint. A lot of times they just do something because they want to do it because it just looks like fun. And all the actors involved do look like they're having a good time.
One of those things I actually enjoyed a lot more, and maybe it's the extended cut had it more, but Kate McKinnon's reactions to everything. They just cut to her and just be her facial expression to whatever is happening.
Is this a big old robot?
Was always hysterical.
Yeah. Oh, Kate McKinnon. She is...
Well, she was... and I love that after the fact, I found out that apparently they were somewhat writing her to be autistic on some level of the spectrum. And you can kind of sense that, especially with her little speech at the end, which was very heartwarming.
Actually, I remember when I first saw this, I was kind of put off with it. Just because she was so... Even compared to the other characters, I thought she was...
very, silly.
It didn't even enter my head, the idea that she could be on the spectrum, until you pointed it out to me. And then when you said that, I was like, oh...
It's kind of most obvious with her speech, and you realize like how she doesn't understand being around people. And I mean, is it an accurate portrayal?
Probably not. Nowhere near as outlandish as Boston Legal, but definitely not as subtle as Parenthood.
But Leslie Jones can just do whatever she wants. Right?
Yeah, for me, this is actually the first time I got to see some of these actresses in action, but I really dug Leslie Jones, and I did love Patty the most. And actually, the major reason why I was easily able to enjoy this one, especially story-wise, none of these characters are clones of... Because that's what people's first glance are going to think, that they're going to think that these are just female clones of the original characters. And no, these characters have their own story. They have their own arcs. Well, actually, they have arcs, which is more than can be said for the characters in the original movie. Their personality quirks are nothing like their male counterparts. They are their own characters. Patty is nothing like Winston in any shape or form. And actually, she brings something more unique to the table, which actually kind of blew my mind and is actually useful when it comes to researching ghosts. A knowledge of New York. She just knew everything about New York.
She knew the history.
Yeah, she knew the history, and she knew what kind of ghost we'd be dealing with based on the location and where they're coming from.
She's the historian of the group, which is something that you'd never actually had. I mean, well, the original group, Ray was more the researcher.
Yeah.
So he just found everything.
Yeah, the funny thing is the research aspect really didn't come out with that group until the video game, funny enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was kind of nice to have a character who just understood history and actually knew what to bring to the table.
I mean, yeah, Holtzman was the tech genius, but she was definitely not Egon on any level.
No.
Like, I think that they would get along with their knowledge of, like, the stuff they were building, but I don't know if they would be able to actually work together at all. Like, I don't know if Egon would want to put up.
Though, that question could actually truly be answered because IDW, when they were doing their Ghostbusters run, they did a crossover with this one, because another way I came to peace with this movie's existence was the fact that Ghostbusters has dabbled in parallel realities countless times.
Literally, in the first movie, they talk about the different dimensions.
Exactly. And in the animated series, they visit parallel realities all the time.
Yeah.
So what's they're saying, this isn't a parallel reality.
Which actually would make total sense, and that would explain why the world's also completely different. Not even about...
Why this New York is drastically different from the...
Yeah, it's just a different place, you know.
Yeah, this is just, it seems to be a much more cynical New York versus the New York in the original, where that was so mean to each other that it was creating slime under the city.
Yeah, this is a New York I could never believe would make slime of its own. Like,
exactly.
I don't feel that Vigo would not be able to take over.
Mm-hmm. For anyone who's going around saying that this movie destroyed your childhood, it's like going, wait a minute, so you're saying this movie is forbidding you from watching the original? I'm
sorry, anything saying you ruined your childhood. You didn't have a childhood then.
If this is what it took to kill your childhood.
Stuff, you know? But the movie's fun, and one major thing the film did do back on the casting is how often do you see a large franchise film starring a group of women who are not hate on me, but not young, pretty Hollywood, Scarlett Johansson only. No, I'm sorry, no hate on her, but who are not your stereotypical Hollywood women who are 30s, 40s, I don't know all their ages, kicking ass, taking names, and are holding the film together. Like, you don't see that often. It's very rare.
Yeah.
And I don't think that is done enough. Like, we had Ocean's 8, and then people didn't go see it. I'm like, that movie was awesome. Why didn't you go see it? You know? Or you get one or two, but then everything's femme fatales primarily, or very young women, which no hate again, but it's so rare to see women of a middle to older age starring in a massive franchise film. Because
they cast the actresses they did, it was frankly easier for me, even as a guy, to relate to these characters just by their personalities, because these are the kind of personalities that are universal. Yeah, the only one that kind of came into her being a woman was Erin. Woman in, academia with tenure. It's not easy, and she would have to fight a lot of the glass ceiling. So that part of her story made sense. It was real. The rest of them doesn't even come up. In fact, there's
not even a thing.
In fact, there's even a scene, which I think was in the extended cut, where she ends up meeting a woman who had tenure, who kept contradicting her own opinions, which leads you to wonder, has this person had to compromise their own philosophies in order to excel in the collegiate level?
Yeah, basically brown nose to the point that she became like the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the scene did not need to be in the movie. It really does not add anything more than just kind of shows what she would become if she continued that path on a more satirical level.
Yeah.
Kind of, that was probably one of the few scenes I was like, no.
Yeah,
But you get it hit home well enough that what she was being forced to do just to be taken seriously at all. And how she was booted out just by, like...
At the mere mention that she had this crazy background in investigating the paranormal, and all of a sudden she's deemed an embarrassment in the eyes of her peers.
Like, guys, hate to say it, that is reality. That's the sad reality that would probably happen. I mean, there was a few times, I will say, I kind of raised a brow at some lines. There was one line that was said that I kind of went...
Well, actually, was it Rowan when
Rowan says, like, when he's talking about all the spirits that are going to come and purge everybody, or was it pester everybody into pieces or something, which actually, I like that bit. That was funny. But then he goes, and they're
mostly dudes.
But they're mostly dudes. I'm like, even they look like... Because at no point did his character ever show a disliking of women. He just didn't like anybody.
Yeah, he just hated people.
He hated everybody, and actually he seemed more animosity towards, like, just more of like when he was at the concert, it was like the guys at the concert, he was just angry at them.
Yeah,
like,
he was
angry at everybody.
He seemed to be
that was a weird line to throw in.
He seemed to be a person who had been so roundly rejected by practically every angle of society that he just decided, pretty much in an Evo Shando fashion, decided society was too sick to survive and just...
Well, that's literally what Shandor did.
Yeah, that's precisely what Shandor did. It's the same principle, only he's experiencing that conclusion through his own means.
The world sucks because it wasn't kind to me, so I'm going to screw you back.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because he was lonely, he didn't have anyone to click with. He was pretty much alone, and that's the thing that separates him from Aaron as a character, is the fact that Aaron had Abby.
And you do see more in the extended cut their connection, their friendship, and it's actually very sweet.
Yeah.
And it kind of shows that just having support and friends sometimes can... And then keep in mind, that's her friend. It's not a love interest that saves her or power of love or any of that garbage. It's just a friend who cares. And sometimes it shows, like, friendship is family, and Holtzman says that.
And if there's anything that's going to get anyone through any hard times, it's going to be friendship.
Especially
nowadays, because we're all cut off from each other. The one thing that has kept a lot of us sane getting through all this is friendship. And this movie does a really good job hitting that point home. And it's with reflection between, the controversy and with the new movie coming out. This one does have a place. It does belong.
It belongs as much as the video game, which I will openly say I personally see as the third film.
In conclusion, this film is a lot more entertaining than people are giving it credit for. Even me, with the multiple viewings, I've now come to the realization it's enjoyable, and it's got a lot of things in its favor. And here's the thing. Just because you aren't into the movie doesn't mean the movie was made specifically for you. There are other people who are going to like this for its own reason. Tyler Perry movies have their audience.
And they love it.
And they love it.
And that's lovely.
And what's beautiful is that even
Lifetime movies. Hallmark Christmas films.
Yeah.
They have their audiences.
They have their audiences.
Lego.
And the one thing I can happily say is that this film has been cultivating a legacy. I've been to DragonCon multiple years since this movie came out, and I have seen people very proudly and unashamedly cosplaying from this, deservedly so, because it's got its own unique look, and it's, again, opening up something which didn't have a particular demographic as their audience before, opening it up to them, so that way everyone can join in on the fun.
Here's the thing. In the end, little girls and boys were being first introduced to Ghostbusters. They didn't see the original films. A lot of people said they just didn't see them. This was a new experience for them, and they got into it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing. New fans is a good thing, especially children. And I will say this film is pretty friendly to children to watch. I would like you to point out the second one's terrifying as hell, and the third one might be also. I'm going to say it. Third one probably will be great for kids too. The first one has a ghost giving a blowjob.
Yeah.
And some adult themes, which I have no issue with personally as an adult, but would you want
Yeah.
Go explain that to the kids.
Again, I saw the original when I was 4 years old, and there was stuff in that movie that scared the ever-loving shit out of
Even
me,
the first one,
and
yeah.
I loved it for it.
Yeah.
And that was great. And when you picture a kid going to see this movie, there's stuff in here that I'm pretty sure will freak them out too. I mean, I will say that freaking mannequin kind of.
Okay, the mannequin.
The mannequin was
Even
pretty.
Patty was like,
Okay, yep. Room full of nightmares. Not going in there.
you called it. And I'm like, that thing's gonna move.
Please do not answer.
There's stuff in here that the kids will enjoy too. And let's face it, a lot of us became fans of Ghostbusters when we were kids.
Yeah. And kids, new ones come in. Like,
Yeah.
guys, it's not just one generation. There's a new one.
Mm-hmm.
Let them have fresh stuff too.
Yeah.
It's just like any fandom, Doctor Who, Star Wars, Star Trek, all of that stuff. You got to have your new generation. You got to have the new set come in. You can't rely on the old forever.
Because otherwise, the franchise just dies out. You'll definitely find friends of Ghostbusters Answer the Call in this house. So, like, share, subscribe, click. Thou shalt be served.
Going back to my booth at the MTA. So let me know if you need some Metro cards. Because I am really...